Vanessa Bryant had some choice words about a certain rapper recently. But why? Because he was on full disrespect and came out reckless with some completely uncalled for lines. Meek isn't known for keeping his mouth shut when he's got something to say. But Vanessa's got a right to be a little irritated about the disregard for a sports legend like Kobe. Maybe Meek didn't really mean it though? I don't know. We're about to dig into it and find out if the dude needs to apologize or if it's been blown out of proportion. Meek Mill's had a huge amount of beef over the years, and this most recent one might be the messiest. Meek's been known for having a tough time not speaking on issues that fire him up or holding back lines that might come across as ignorant. While Meek's a pretty well-loved rapper, he might not be as popular as he is now someday, especially if he keeps going off as he does. Recently, he had a line about the recently deceased Kobe Bryant. Was what Meek said about Kobe uncalled for? Or was it just an offhand line that shouldn't be given too much attention? Meek Mill, real name Robert Rameek Williams, was born a Taurus back in the late 80s. Weirdly enough, it doesn't seem like Meek inherited the traits that Tauruses are known for, like tact. He's had high-profile beef with Cassidy, Drake, The Game, and 6ix9ine. Although who hasn't beef with 6ix9ine? He first got things popping off with a group called Bloodhounds in Philly after establishing himself as a battle rapper in the local scene. Maybe those roots, shooting shots at other rappers, carry over into how he conducts himself now. Meek eventually caught the attention of superstar rapper T.I., getting his first record deal before moving over to Maybach Music Group. He dropped his first album, Dreams and Nightmares, back in 2012. Although he had been on a good few high-profile features before then. He also launched his own record label, Imprint, before he got into the studio again to drop Dreams Worth More Than Money and Wins and Losses. In 2017, his trouble went beyond just Twitter beefing with people who had gotten on his bad side. Instead, he caught a charge and went to prison, starting a huge campaign called Free Meek. He had legal trouble in the past, but this specific case really blew up. He had already been hit with assault, guns, and drug charges, but this time it went beyond just a few years of probation. As Meek's legal troubles mounted and he began looking at jail time, many people, including Jay-Z and Kevin Hart, eventually came out in his support. While, he did hurt a couple of people in an airport, his case was mishandled. The judge was doing all sorts of weird clout chasing, trying to get shout outs in upcoming Meek songs in addition to trying to get him to sign with her friend. I don't know, weird stuff. It came out later that this wasn't the first case where the law didn't work how it should. Back in 2008, there were also tons of irregularities in the court proceedings. The biggest one was that there were credibility issues with the arresting officer. So that case should have just been re-examined too. While it might be easy to feel Meek on this, that doesn't mean he's completely in the right. He's dissed most of the entire rap game back and forth over the last 10 years, and that means that people are going to have some words. He's not the most level-headed guy, Even this year, he would have gotten in a physical fight with 6ix9ine if it wasn't for the fact that he had a security detail with him. Meek has described his own behavior as clownish before, and this current Kobe beef is definitely goofy. Kobe Bryant really needs no introduction, but just to respect his legacy, we're going to get into it just a little bit. Kobe Bryant is probably one of the greatest ever to do it when it came to basketball. The dude was an 18-time All-Star. He helped the Lakers win 5 championships, and he has the second most points scored in a single game in the entire history of the NBA, behind Wilt Chamberlain. But he was also a very well-loved person, especially among sports fans. He was an inspiration to generations of kids growing up on basketball teams. No one could have seen his tragic end coming. Unfortunately, and very recently, a horrible event befell Kobe. Not just Kobe, but also his 13-year-old daughter and 7 other people. Everyone aboard the helicopter died that day, on January 26th of 2020. The helicopter crashed over Calabasas, just 30 miles outside of LA. The helicopter probably shouldn't have been flying that day, and LAPD had grounded all of their choppers due to low visibility. The helicopter was flying too low, and it seems that a bad turn was the reason it went down. There was an investigation launched into the incident, but it seems like at the end of the day, it really was just an accident that no one could have accounted for. The reaction to the news of Kobe's passing was huge. Fans and even people who weren't that familiar with him or the sport came out to talk about how tragic his death was, especially since he was only 41. Not only that, but the president at the time, Donald Trump, staged a memorial. Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton also came out to speak publicly about his passing. There was also a memorial set up real quick at the Staples Center, the home court of the Lakers. There were also tons of landmarks like LAX, the Empire State Building, and Madison Square Gardens in New York City that were lit up purple and gold to remember and pay tribute to Bryant. This is where we got to get back into Meek, in a way that isn't going to shine the best light on him. Basically, it's been taboo to joke about Kobe or anything like that, but that only makes sense. Regardless of whether you want to look at the line Meek dropped as some big thing or just a throwaway line from a rapper who hasn't really had the best time staying relevant, it's problematic. The line in question here is, "I'll go out with my chopper. It'll be another Kobe." Yeesh. That's pretty bad, bro. Like, big oof. Hella yikes bad, boy. But just because you thought it doesn't mean you say it, Meek. There are plenty of rappers who have been called out in the past for lines that don't really hit. Lines that are outright rude and uncalled for, etc., etc. Some people, like Eminem, who was widely considered one of the best rappers there was in his prime, made whole careers off of it. But not everyone can pull that off. And in retrospect, maybe they should never have been able to. With TikTokers trying to cancel Eminem for lyrics on Love the Way You Lie with Rihanna, maybe it's about time we were done with rappers saying shady stuff for clout. It's one thing to be controversial, and it's another thing entirely to have absolutely no concept of too soon. Since it's literally been like a year at this point, it could very well be too soon. Not only that, but Bryant was one of the most beloved men in sports. Not to mention the fact that it wasn't just Kobe who passed away. His teenage daughter and everyone else on the helicopter also fell victim to the accident. To just talk about that like it's nothing, just something that makes a so-so punchline, is pretty tone deaf. Now, even outside of the hot takes that Meek stans and haters have put out there, people closer to the situation have had some things to say. One of those people was Vanessa Bryant, Kobe's widow, who survived her husband. Just some background on her before we get into the clapback. She met Kobe when she was 17. She was a background dancer, and Kobe was working on his first album. They began dating and got married roughly 6 months later having 4 children over the course of their marriage. Although they almost got a divorce in 2011, they seem to have worked things out because the divorce got called off. Even though Vanessa said there were irreconcilable differences, you know she had to come to her late husband's defense when Meek wrote that line. Was she out of line though? When Vanessa heard the lyric, she must have been completely shook at that energy. It was out of pocket for real. Dear @Meek Mill, I find this line to be extremely insensitive and disrespectful, period. I am not familiar with any of your music, but I believe you can do better than this. If you are a fan, fine. There's a better way to show your admiration for my husband. This lacks respect and tact. She posted on Insta in a story. Now, that's level-headed. Honestly, she could have gone in on him way harder than that, and she still would have been justified. Unfortunately, he didn't come back with nearly as much respect. I'm going back savage in this shit. Fuck your feelings. Those are some choice words, and we have to agree here, bro definitely has problems with his tact. We totally get the energy here. If you're trying to keep this big image of being a tough guy who's not about to buckle for nobody, but also, like, is this necessary? Vanessa is still grieving, as she should be. This was a huge loss for her. He deleted the tweet a few hours later, but my guy, come on, man. A bunch of fans tweeted back at him, asking him to apologize, but we haven't seen anything of that yet. Will he ever admit that he was on some BS? People also pointed out in the tweets that he wasn't the only one to spit some lines about Kobe, but that's not like it makes it any better. 2 wrongs don't make a right here. Lil Wayne has been called out for it too, but Lil Wayne also dropped a whole song back in 2009 about how Kobe Bryant was the best in the game, comparing himself to Kobe, but in the rap game instead of on the court. All this to say, we've had some sort of resolution at this point, and it seems like Meek was just trying to save face by tweeting about being a savage. He apologized to Vanessa in private, which he mentioned in a tweet. I apologized to her in private earlier today, not to the public. Nothing I say on my page directed to an internet viral moment or the family of a grieving woman. If you care about someone grieving, change the subject. It seems like he's actually sorry. But should he have just dropped it in the first place? At the end of the day, it seems like the beef is more or less squashed. At the same time, was Meek in the wrong here, even though he apologized? There's no news on whether Miss Bryant actually accepted the apology, but it does seem like he's legitimately sorry. What do y'all think? Is everything cool now, or was it wrong of him to bring the whole thing up for a bit of clout anyway? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For the latest rap news and gossip, you know where to be. Deuces.